You guys probably read the same article I read. The World Health Organization, or WHO, announced that dogs cannot contract COVID-19. You read that, right? And so dogs previously held in quarantine could now be released. So to be clear, who let the dogs out? Who? Okay. All right, stay with me on this stuff, all right? Okay, so next up, the most quoted man alive in the world today. Even my wife now goes, Gene Seroka's in the paper again today. So he's not like the lonely Maytag repairman. He's Gene Seroka, Executive Director at the Port of Los Angeles. He'll be discussing the port outlook. Please welcome Gene up.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. And to reiterate what's been said all morning, it sure is great to see everybody and be back here in person again. Thank you, Nick, for putting on a great show for the 9th consecutive year. I think, Marvy, we have some slides. If not, I got them memorized. Well, it's been a long way to get here. It's been a long way to get here. Okay. Super long way to get here. We've taken the Wayback Machine so far this morning, so I'm not going to take too much time on that. But those of us in the supply chain, whether we're students, teachers, business people, government sector, private sector, have been through a lot over the last 3.5 years. It began with trade policy, retaliatory tariffs, a choppiness in the supply chain that not a lot of us wanted to see on a regular basis. It became very politicized, which of course we will not do here today. But the lingering effects carry on. I hope to give you just a couple of insights today, and then more importantly, tell you what we're trying to do to help just from our smart patch from what we're trying to do here in Los Angeles specifically. And that small node of the port complex fans out to everybody. It's at the confluence of most of the activities. So we do feel we have an outsized responsibility to help, but we need everybody chipping in at the same time. As we move forward off of those trade tariffs, it may be forgotten that in the fourth quarter of 2019, our port's business plummeted by 16% because all that cargo was pulled forward to get underneath those tariffs, and we stocked up on inventory, mainly in the import community. And then we flash forward to the beginning of 2020, COVID-19 hit China, central government direction came down, and we essentially shuttered the world economy for the better part of 8 months, thinking about how little we brought in the fourth quarter of 2019 and how we went all the way till the end of May, basically eliminating a lot of what we used to do. We weren't getting on airplanes to see grandma and grandpa. We weren't traveling for business. We didn't go to ball games or restaurants. It seemed like as we started to get into May, a big family outing was going to our big box retailer on the weekends because they were the only ones that were open. And then we found the magic of the click, as Nick had said. We began to order more online than ever before. In fact, over the last 12 months, we've doubled online buying what it took us a decade to build in the retail industry. Today, that industry now witnessed 20% of its revenue coming from online buying. And I think this graph exemplifies that specifically. We're buying more retail and tangible goods. We're spending less on services. And we still haven't put a lot of that money back into services. Great to see the Dodgers playing, ability to go out to Dodger Stadium. Great to go to other venues in somewhat limited circumstances like restaurants and shows. Even today, we only have about half of the audience in person that we had anticipated and seen in years past. So we're still trying to adjust to the best of our ability. And as it came to COVID-19, thank you to Dr. Nassim for all the work that she did over the past year and a half. But that's where Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti asked me to be the city's first ever chief logistics officer. We went out into the marketplace and purchased 22 million N95 masks from Honeywell. And to this date, in addition to other products that we've procured and donated, We have distributed through the City of Los Angeles' Chief Logistics Office more than 10.5 million units of PPE, either at cost or on donation, to more than 250 Los Angeles area hospitals and healthcare facilities. Thank you. So once again, trying to chip in to the best of our ability. A lot has been made in the news and mainstream media and just about everybody following us now in the supply chain. Cargo volume is up for one simple reason: the sheer power of the American consumer. We'll get into replenishment and supply chains and how all that else fits together, but we're buying more than ever. Retail sales were up again 0.7% in the month of September, higher than most analysts on Wall Street and industry observers had thought was going to happen once again. We still have more cash in our bank accounts. We still have more spending power than we ever have. And our calendar year projection probably will be the best all time. It may be as much as 14 to 17% higher than our best year ever in a more normal time of 2018. So this isn't just cartoon-like growth figures over a very weird 2020 or a choppy 2019. This is, again, the real power of bringing in a tremendous amount of cargo to satisfy our collective retail demands, durables, sofas, furnitures, outdoor goods, as well as sporting goods, athleisure wear, just about everything we've been purchasing over the last year and a half. But here's where the rub comes. Some folks have ordered more than they really need. And to Wink's point just now, it really struck a chord last week in Washington. Many of the major retailers have told us it's no longer just in time, it is just in case. Folks don't want to run out of product on their shelves, so we miss out on purchasing. They want to make sure there's a little extra inventory because the inventory sales ratio nationwide is the lowest it's been since 2008. So that choppiness continues. How much do you need? Where you need it? When is it going to be there? And how do we get it to that point? This slide, I think, really shows where we're at on that. On our docks right now in Los Angeles, we've got cargo sitting, about 45% of it, for 5 days or longer. In more normal times, cargo comes in, it's at rest for 2 days, it goes out on rail, it goes out on truck, and we keep churning this big economic engine. That's not so much the case. A week ago, 13% of our cargo, 13 days or longer represented 25% of the cargo sitting there. Now, again, what the retailers, home improvement folks, and others have told me is that right now on the docks in Los Angeles, I've got lounge chairs and electric fans, and I've got pool products. I need Christmas trees and bicycles and toys, and they're all out there at anchor right now. And at anchor today, we have 62 container ships, about half of which are designated to L.A., the other half to Long Beach. We've got another 22 container ships on the way over the next 3 days. That is a tremendous amount of cargo. But here again, put it in perspective, those 62 ships that are sitting out there right now represent about 2 weeks worth of work. So it's not that bad over a 52-week time frame, but it's about, again, getting the cargo to the right place at the proper time and who needs it. At the same time, another stat that might give you a little bit of insight as to how choppy this really is. During a traditional work week, when we go to work from 8 to 5 every day at the docks and then 6 p.m. to 3 a.m., every day, 30% of our truck appointments go unused. That's 30% latent capacity that simply is perishable every single day. And it's for a variety of reasons. The trucker can't get the empty container back with a chassis. The import may be in a closed area, brand new term in our industry, right? Not going to let you in because it's in a closed area. There may be a mismatch of timing and appointments because those empties may go back to one of 2 or 3 facilities, and it's not recognized until the 11th hour as to when that trucker has got to go where. Traffic on the California freeways, and the lack of a digital system across our nation's largest port complex. All of those are being worked on, going through spreadsheets, phone call at a time. That's not sustainable either, because we service more than 125,000 companies every year that call the Port of Los Angeles home for their import cargo. Another 75,000 call it home for their export business. So we've got to be able to process this information, digitize it, and use it with the speed of light in order to be much more efficient and to the Dean's point, much more resilient. Our industry has to be able to scale up and down. There is a fear of having too much on the worker side, too much on the capital side. We got to get over ourselves and feel out the situation a little bit better with some analytics that I think will be helpful. The rail side has improved over the last couple of months. We've cut the rail backlog of containers in Los Angeles by 2/3 over the last 60 days and in half over the last month. And what we've done to try to combat all of this is turn it into a push system, and I'll share that in just a moment. Our digital platform, the Port Optimizer, has not gained the traction that I would like. There are folks that simply don't want to adopt it. They don't want to get into a situation where competition rises and a rising tide lifts all boats, literally and figuratively. Some folks are fearful that their data would be exposed or maybe sold by others because it's very valuable to them. Once again, I would say that we have to move forward in a unified direction to share this information so we can be much more resilient and efficient as we go in front of the next wave of choppiness in the supply chain. We're 30 years behind Asia, Europe, and the Middle East when it comes to port community systems. There's absolutely no reason for that with the ingenuity and technology in the United States of America. So what we've done now for months, beginning with the President of the United States executive order back in February on supply chain, where he outlined specific commodities, specific transportation areas and geographies that we needed to get after very quickly and look into what we could improve. A supply chain disruption task force was stood up following that executive order, led by the Departments of Labor, Transportation, and Commerce. Comment was made earlier about government can't lead things, government can't do things. Government must do things. Private sector has proprietary interests and individual interests that we all need to work together. Government can be a unifying force. It can be that convener to bring people to the table. Not trying to tell private sector business how to do their work, where they should invest, who they should hire, but bringing big minds and big thinkers to the table is exactly what we're witnessing right now. So we've given short and longer term recommendations to the senior officials in the administration as well as industry to see what we could do just to put a little charge into the supply chain. It started off with financial incentives to get our truck wait times reduced, make sure we had round trip economics with those truckers, bring a container in, leave with a unique container, and enhance supply chain work of our liner shipping companies to grow business and share data. In addition to that, we've expanded our port community system with 4 new modules, all in the last 12 months, designed and developed for industry by industry. Again, we're only seeing about half the bay today. We need more adoption in this area to share information and give the cargo owners, the transportation companies, and so many others the visibility they require. And what it's done for me, quite honestly, is given not only the ability for exception management and operations looks that we haven't had before, but it gives us deeper insight to analytics. So when people throw up their hands and say, my goodness, the ports are just congested, I can't do anything, we can look at the nodal effects, we can see progress or degradation in service, and take action. That's where data is so important and so powerful. In addition to that, we're working with other officials in trying to get standards put together for API technology, similar to what we did as an industry 48 years ago with the UN CFAC and trying to get EDI standards. Now we've got to leap forward a little bit. We have the ability to build APIs with endcaps that are standards. Our API storage has celebrated its 5-year anniversary. The speed by which we can push information to each other's proprietary systems has never been faster, and it will continue to accelerate. And that brings us to Accelerate Cargo L.A. and something that we've been working on here for the past 6 weeks. Traditionally, at the Port of Los Angeles, We post hours of operations. We put up a website and say, please make your reservation to come get your cargo, and we'll wait for you. Let's turn that around. We know how much cargo is on the docks, how long it's been sitting, and where it is located. Now it's time for a push system. We want commitments from every importer on record. How much cargo can you handle today? Do you have the truck power? Do we have enough chassis available? And in parallel, get corresponding commitments from liner shipping companies to bring the same amount of exports and empties back to the port complex so we can spin those imports out with real confidence. Again, it's a round-trip economics play for the trucker. It's making sure that we work down these piles on the marine terminals, and we have a line of sight as to how much we can load up to send the ship back to Asia. Again, it's not sustainable to work off a spreadsheet and a conference call with every single one of those 125 importers, but we're hoping that we get enough momentum to create a process, a digital plan for this, and then make sure that the importers have confidence we can move the cargo in and out as swiftly and predictably as they had wanted to do when they first came to Los Angeles. And that Accelerate Cargo L.A. program now has about 36 customers that we're working with. And we're trying to make sure that, again, we squeeze every minute, every hour of productivity out of what we're doing. The idea behind 24/7 was pretty simple. It was important enough for the President of the United States to announce, and it was an effort to bring the entire orchestra of supply chain players together. Not everybody works on the same schedule, as many of us know. Truckers are federally mandated by hours of service requirements, and then they must take a rest after so much work. Warehouses have been stymied by COVID-19, and traditionally here in Southern California work during the daytime. Yet we boast more than 2 billion square feet of warehousing space from the shores of the Pacific to our Southern California desert region. If we can increase productivity there, that would be wonderful. But those two segments of labor also require a little bit more attention. We've got to find better ways in the private sector with government's help to attract, recruit, and retain professional employees in these sectors. They could be good middle-class jobs, not at $7 an hour, but maybe more. Remuneration studies have shown that we could retain people in this sector if we give them a couple more things. Benefits that are on par with other careers and industries. In addition to that, great service at our ports. These truckers need to make turns in order to earn their living, and they need to run this cargo out to the IE as quickly as they can, as an example. So all that must be taken on after decades worth of procurement on both ocean freight and trucking have driven prices down to a floor. Now we're seeing that bounce back in a very different way. A round-trip truck move between the Port of Los Angeles and Wilmington, a 10-mile round-trip run right now is going for $500 US. We got to balance this out a little better, but again, we're in a triage situation today. We've got to get cargo out, we got to hit Black Friday, we got to hit fulfillment centers, and we got to make the most out of that family-owned toy company that may bring in only 10 containers a year, but their entire payroll depends on what we do in the next several weeks. In the longer term, this big thinker process, whether it's what Nick and I do back in Washington with our FACA groups at the U.S. Department of Commerce, Transportation, and others, really are bringing about some of the thought leadership we need. Academia is right there with us. It's a great blend of public and private sector, along with those great researchers and academicians. That must continue. We've got to spread this digitization wider reaching in the United States, and think of it quite simply as a heat map. If you're an importer or exporter, you could look at one side of your iPad and see all the red. Those are the bottlenecks. Let's avoid those. Let's find the path of least resistance in moving cargo. The other one is an opportunity map. Where are containers and assets located? Where can I get the best service? How can I match up schedules? That's all I want with digitization. It's not about the underlying service provider. It's not about the private sector tech company. It's about sharing information to remove the friction from the supply chain and create certainty. In addition, we will be turning dirt very soon with the Port of Long Beach on the nation's first port-based workforce training and development center. We've got to be able to reskill and upskill folks for the future, see what the next leadership cycle is going to look like. And it's not just only for Longshore, although they will be a great core group of people. It'll be for just about everyone who wants to do business in the port. From the kids that we talk to at the schools that are going through STEM classes, to folks that want to get their CDL in the truck industry and accelerate how they can get into market. 45% of all the truckers that work at the port today have 5 rigs or less. These are small business people that are trying to make a buck to put food on the table. We got to do a better job of helping them out and bringing folks into the industry. Last week, when we met with Secretary Buttigieg and Director Brian Deese of the National Economic Council in Washington, the American Trucking Association told the administration, we have a shortfall right now of 30,000 truckers nationwide. I think that's a little light. It's probably more than that, given the seasonal activity of all the work that we're trying to do in the supply chain. So here again, just a little bit of thought, whether it's students, business leaders, or the folks here at USC, how can we get folks involved in our industry? We also need a couple of things that did not go over really easily. When I had the privilege of visiting with the president, I asked him if he would look at his trade policy. Now, while I will caveat this just the way I did with him, I am not advocating that we succumb to any other trading nation that doesn't share our ideals on environmental stewardship, the worker experience, or rules-based trade globally. There are a couple things we have to look at right now. The Phase 1 trade deal has been a disaster for the American farmer. The Port of Los Angeles now is down 31 of the last 35 months on exports. And we moved a paltry 75,000 containers last month. That's the lowest number of export containers since 2002. We also need to look at chassis wheels. The Section 301 and 232 tariffs, for other reasons, were put in place. But until we can get American or nearshored manufacturing updated and cycled back into the system of delivering these chassis, we may need a little break on these particular tariffs. We've got to bring some of these wheels in. A lot of ours are antiquated, old, and because of these elongated dwell times, we have artificial shortages in many locations. The President agreed with the thought the USTR is going to look at it. So we'll see. But that's the power of what we have here in the supply chain, is data and discussion around not only how we move our business forward, but what policy is going to help us as well. And I'll leave you with one last thought. I had the privilege yesterday of speaking to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a little after lunchtime. She asked what we need, and I said, we're all pulling for her to get this infrastructure bill done. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you're a progressive Dem or a moderate, doesn't matter. Over the last decade, the United States Congress and federal government have outinvested U.S. West Coast ports at a rate of 11-1. That's $11 billion that have gone to ports on the East and Gulf Coast, compared to a little more than $1 billion here on the West Coast. And as Nick rightly said, with 40% of America's imports coming through the Southern California twin ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, if we're looking to get the greatest return for the American citizenry on our investment, all roads lead right here to Southern California. So let's pull for getting this done. A lot of what you see right now on the news and with the film clips is 10 years of underinvestment. Let's turn that around a little bit, keep the great thought leaders moving on how we can improve our supply chain, and work very closely with our customers so we know exactly what the expectations are and how we can rise up to meet those. I thank you very much for the time and privilege. It's always great to see you.